Welcome, everyone, to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Jackson, and we have a lot to talk about today.
We have a lot to talk about.
Autism Awareness Month continues with lots of things breaking in the news, lots of studies coming out, and
it's a little overwhelming how much stuff is coming out.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to determine when I read these things, I'm always careful to read how big the percentage is that they are studying, and because a lot of this big brouhaha in the news about things like overweight mothers during pregnancy, older fathers, but then when you read the fine print, it's a much different picture. A much different picture
than what we're seeing in the media.
So we're trying to give you the real story, and we'll try to give you actually percentages here and what stage these studies are in, because a lot of these studies are years away from being implemented as well into the general public.
I think it's important to talk about it, but we have to take it all with a little bit of a grain of salt and a little bit of understanding that it is, we're starting to see possible correlations between things. That is not an answer. That's a possible, that raises more questions, and more questions is good.
Right, I agree.
But
so anyway, one of the studies that was really interesting to me, Shannon, was that artificial intelligence is providing easy autism diagnosis in minutes. And I thought this was particularly interesting. It's from the Harvard Medical School. And using artificial intelligence, which is basically computers, is the bottom line. What they're doing is they're saying it's a new way to accurately detect autism in minutes, which sounds astounding to me.
It does.
And that basically it's machine learning algorithms. Is that the correct pronunciation for all these math geniuses out there? And what they're doing is they're taking a video, and then there's a question. They found that when applying algorithms towards patients who'd previously been diagnosed using the ADOS system, the ADOS, the Autism Diagnostic Interview Observation Schedule, which takes hours to administer. That 8 out of the 29 items contained in the first module of the exam were able to classify autism with 100% accuracy, and also a short observational video of the child to obtain a diagnosis.
So what I love about it is that they're finding ways to streamline. And that so far they're seeing that it's pretty effective. I love that a large portion of the test is being streamlined into 93 different questions that can be answered. There is still that human element that they have to look at a videotape of the child instead of that 3-hour-long interview.
Well, they're saying it would eliminate human error, provide a faster diagnosis process, and allowing families a better chance at receiving early intervention that's so critical, as we know. The reason this was particularly interesting to me was that I was put off by my pediatrician saying boys are late talkers and boys have tantrums because they are late talkers, and it's frustration. Then at 3, my son, 3.5, received a diagnosis from a school district, I won't say which district, psychologist. And after visiting us at home, after visiting him in a preschool setting, and after visiting him at a Barnes & Noble, she arrived at a PDD-NOS diagnosis. Now, had I had the criteria myself, I could have diagnosed him with moderate autism, because he met all 3 areas, impairment in social communication, language, and he had repetitive behaviors in all 3. Now, not quite a year after that, he was diagnosed by the regional center with moderate autism, meeting all 3 criteria. So then I said, well, how in the heck did he get diagnosed with 2 very different diagnoses by people that are supposedly very well trained in this? And that concerns me.
Well, and one of the things that I had said to you is that I'm cynical, so I'm going to say that up front, but I think it's really important that whenever somebody is diagnosing your child, that you know what stake they have in it. That if it's, and I'm going to be divisive here and say that for a school district, you know, they have, especially in this economy, they have few dollars, and the more children that are diagnosed, the less dollars that they have to spend on other things. So there is going to be pressure put on some people to not diagnose as many children, because if they're diagnosed, then they need services. And I don't ever want my child's decision about what services he gets driven by money. And I don't think
I was very naive in those days.
We all have been naive.
I just assumed that everybody had the best interest of my son Wyatt at heart, and that was their primary concern. And of course I was relieved when he got a diagnosis of PDD and OS. And I believe that because so much at that time, the parent questionnaire was a big part of it. And I believe I glossed over a lot of his symptoms because I was hoping for a better diagnosis, which was a disservice, because my son ended up getting, by now, by today's standards, late intervention in terms of any ABA. He got it when he was almost 5.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all have that fear. When we have to fill out the part of the questionnaire ourselves, we have people come in and talk about assessments on a regular basis, and I'm always expressing, you know, it's hard because we want to be positive, but we don't want to, you know, short sale, and we don't, and she said, you know, it is designed in such a way that it looks for those kinds of things as well. So we should all forgive ourselves that what we answer, that, so it was not in any way your fault. You can forgive yourself for that.
I've done that.
But I think that something like this study gives us hope for something that can streamline so more kids can get treatment quicker. But I do think that we still need to listen to our own instincts. I'm worried for the parent who takes their child somewhere down the line and this test spits out and says, didn't qualify, and the parent goes, but in my gut, I still feel like something's wrong. So I still think that we're going to have to follow up and follow our gut no matter what. If we can streamline it and get services faster, yippee. But are we ever going to get something that's exact? I don't know.
I also think that anytime we see Harvard Medical School, we go, well, okay, they know. And you know what? A mother's gut is more important than any institution.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Amen to that. Another study that I was really interested in, as we got these new numbers from the CDC, and we see that the disparity between the boys and the girls, that number just keeps growing.
People ask me that every day. Why more boys? Why more boys? Can you break it down for us?
Well, and there's one new study that has some suggestions in one area of autism. I like to remind everybody that we can't look at it as autism. It's autism. It has to be autisms. There's so many different places on the spectrum. So this study is showing with one particular gene, and it's in the shank. They call it the shank-1.
Does that stand for anything here?
I have no idea what that stands for. But the shank-1 gene, that in some cases of autism, they're seeing that there is an issue with the shank-1 gene. And that in that shank-1 gene part of autism, that there is a huge difference between the boys who show up with autism and the girls, and they're starting to believe that there is some element, some biochemical element in the girls that is protecting them from having this mutation. And if that's
isn't there something to do with proteins?
Well, it's the proteins are coded in a certain way, and that something happens with the proteins, and there is a mutation in the boys with the shank-1 gene.
That is more common and prevalent than in girls. A mutation in the gene. Okay, so when the next time somebody asks me, because, by the way, I'm an autism advocate and activist. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor, and neither are you. We're both activists and advocates, and
asking the same questions that you
asking the same questions and trying to get information out there. But the next time somebody asks me why more boys than girls, we believe it's because studies have shown there's a genetic mutation that affects more boys than girls.
Well, you got to be careful, because this is just one element, and they're starting to look at that. They don't have an answer yet. And this is just one element. This isn't not all children with autism have this genetic mutation.
Okay.
So it's not going to be across the board. But what's exciting about this is that for this element of autism, for people who do have the SHANK1 mutation, and they're seeing that there is a genetic component to it, that there's prevalence across families, more likely to happen. If they can figure out what the protection is in the girls that doesn't allow for the mutation to happen, then they might be able to replicate that and potentially be able to help boys down the line, so that there might be a time when you can have your child genetically tested, see that there is the prevalence in your family for this SHANK1 mutation, and that there might be perhaps a vaccination or something that your boy can get that will protect them against the mutation. That is so far down the line.
But once again, a way of predicting, a way of possibly treating early so it doesn't happen.
Right, potentially.
Good.
So interesting, but again, just raising more questions, no answers.
Okay. Another study that I thought was particularly interesting was that mineral deficiencies can be affected by dietary factors that then affect the way the body detoxifies. Now, this is this is talked about a lot in the biomedical community, about toxins and how they interact with foods and chemicals, how they interact with detoxifying, which is, I think, is called methylation. And this study said that things like even consumption of high fructose corn syrup is linked to the dietary loss of zinc, which then interferes with the detoxification of heavy metals. So in other words, mercury in the body, if there's too much high fructose corn syrup in the diet, then that child may have a particular difficulty in detoxifying from heavy metals and other toxins.
Right, and they specifically cited mercury and pesticides.
Yes.
And I think that this is really interesting because we talk a lot on the show about how important it is to get our children healthy and to have their diet be healthy, because it's going to set them up for more success no matter what you're doing.
No matter what you're doing and whether your child's on the spectrum or not. I mean, we've got so many disorders out there affecting children. Childhood obesity, of course, diabetes, juvenile diabetes, along with autism. A healthy diet cannot harm, it can only benefit your child.
Right.
And getting rid of food dyes, toxins, and certain things in the diet, every doctor will tell you will only benefit your child, and especially those with autism. So the bottom line on this is factors like nutrition and exposure to toxic chemicals are cumulative and can affect normal development. They're also saying that high fructose corn syrup can impact levels of other beneficial minerals, including calcium. So a lot in this study that I thought was really, really good information, and that it was at Northeastern University, a co-author of the study, and I think that we all should look at. And this, there was some very, very this was not a fringe study, I want people to know. This was done by, the study's lead author was a former Food and Drug Administration toxicologist. And, this was at Northwestern. And I think a very, very intensive study that we should all be aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can take this information, and even if we make small changes, it could have huge effects for our children.
One of the best food books out there had something in it that said, don't eat it if your grandmother wouldn't recognize it.
There you go.
And how much do we eat that our grandmother wouldn't recognize?
Well, truly.
Right.
Truly.
Right.
So really important.
And it can be a problem getting our kids to eat these foods. My son has a lot of sensory issues. Wyatt doesn't like any fruits. It took us a long time to get him into vegetables. But a good behavior therapy program can get your child to eat the vegetables and fruits they are not willing to eat because of sensory and other. We know our kids are notoriously picky eaters,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talk about that a lot on the,
yeah,
on
I know
show
you do.
about eating healthy.
So that's important.
And we need to be doing it as well. We need to model that behavior.
Right.
We need to be eating our fruits and veggies.
Okay,
We got to take a break, and we have a wonderful guest who's going to be with us. We're going to be. I told them earlier that we're going to be talking about some apps for autism.
I met this young woman at an autism conference, and I was very intrigued with her app that she created. After years of working, she has worked with children on the spectrum for many years, and she's a delightful young lady who very bright and very, very passionate about helping our kids. So we're very excited to have her.
So we're going to have Kim Scott when we come back. Stick with us, and we're going to talk apps for autism.
Okay,
back in a minute.
Good. Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod.
And we have a delightful young woman with us that I was lucky enough to meet at a recent autism conference.
Oh, wonderful. Kim Scott, welcome to our show. We're so thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today.
Yeah. And Kim, tell us about just your experience in the field of autism, first of all.
Sure. Well, I started studying speech pathology about 16 years ago, and my first client had severe autism. And I just found it to be a fascinating field, as a challenge to me, and I loved working with autism. And throughout my years, I worked in hospitals, schools, private practice. And here I am today, still working with autism.
So how did you get the idea to make an app?
Well, we've been using, I'm sure you're familiar with Boardmaker and PEX for so many years.
PEX,
we've used that. And we have to go to the computer and use Boardmaker, type out pictures, print them out, laminate, Velcro, and make these for each of our clients. It was really time consuming. So this past year I was at a school district for 2 months consulting there. And when I went in, I noticed that all of the students, most of the students were nonverbal, and only one had a communication system. And so I saw there was a big problem there. They weren't able to access their communication. So that's when I suggested that the district use iPads, some technology that we can use. One student who had cerebral palsy, she had a Dynabox, which was a 5-pound device that was about $10,000. But the other students didn't have anything, and this was even difficult for her to use because the battery would die.
Oh, yeah.
Teachers didn't know how to modify it. We couldn't add pictures to it. It was just sort of there.
Yeah.
So basically, do you feel like the school systems, they weren't keeping up with the technology? In other words, they didn't have that ability?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you saw, hey, I could create something here, huh?
I did, and I suggested, let's get the iPad. We had 5 families that were in mediation. They were unhappy with the district. They were suing the district. And I said, they need communication systems. Let's buy the iPad and save you guys some money.
Yeah.
And so that process would have taken a year or two for them to get the funds for the iPad. By that time, we wasted a year or two with our students, which we don't have that kind of time.
No, we
Every
don't.
day is so critical. So I went out and bought an iPad myself. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to see what it's like. And I purchased every app out there. And it was amazing, revolutionary, what our kids could do, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And even my student with cerebral palsy, she wanted to use the iPad, not her big machine.
Yeah, because not only that, you know, Kim, I think the iPad gives them a sense of being like other kids, right? I mean, doesn't it?
It's cool, it's fun, and it's visually stimulating, it's motivating, and that's what gets our kids to communicate. They don't want to communicate unless there's something that they really enjoy.
Absolutely.
And they want to use. So I bought all the apps out there, and some apps, about $200 apps, but I still wanted to get them. And they were working for a couple of my students, but there were so many factors that were playing into these apps that weren't working.
Okay, what did you think wasn't working and that you have incorporated into Panda Pal?
Yeah.
What wasn't working was that the screen was so sensitive. So a lot of our students have fine motor issues.
Right.
Where they they might need a little prompt to touch and release. These apps were just touch, touch, touch. So I'd have a sentence that had 20 words on it where they just really were going to put 2 or 3 together. And I didn't know what they were trying to communicate. I didn't know if they really meant this or that because they were touching the screen because they wanted to touch the icons.
Right.
So I needed a system where they could, I would know what they're communicating. So somehow, how can we make it so they're touching and holding, and we know this is what they want.
Okay.
So I designed a touch and hold for that. It's a unique feature that you can turn it on and off. So if once your kids develop past that, you could turn it off and they could whiz right through it.
Okay.
But for our early language learners, they need a system that they could use. The iPad was, it was sort of this. I was teaching them to navigate through a system as opposed to communicate. I was teaching them how to just touch once, and it was they were getting a little frustrated. So it was, I saw that there was a need for that, and I couldn't.
So you really made it more user-friendly for our kids
for our
in the beginning
kids.
stage.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was one. The other thing I designed was data collection, because when you see they start using it, you go, oh my gosh, they just made a sentence. I want to go tell mom. I want to tell the teacher. And you're writing, and I'm taking notes as they're communicating to me, and that sentence is gone. Now we're moving on, and you'll see over 3 or 4 weeks, they're going to make so much progress. They all do. And how do you take data? How can you share
wait a minute,
that?
I want to go back to something. They make so much progress. They all do. You really feel that way?
Yeah. With
That's so
my
great.
students, and I've used my app with so many of my students, and they've all made progress with it.
That's
if
incredible.
It's just touching one picture for me, that's fine.
That's progress.
It's
progress is progress, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so can you show us a few things on Panda Pal? I don't know whether Emily can. We were talking about whether we could get it directly on the screen or whether we can just show it here.
Let's show us.
Let's try.
And we'll turn it around to a camera and see if we can show people at home what.
Let's see. So here is the screen.
Okay. And we'll turn it.
Turn it around. Yeah, we
There
can
we go.
see it
We
on
can see it
camera.
totally fine. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
perfect.
Is it a little glare? Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So the homepage comes with categories.
Okay.
And so in language we have categories. There's different situations, different contexts where we have to use words. So this is just, and you can add as many as you want to this page.
So we can customize.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
It's like a template, really.
Right.
So I made this for the majority of the kids I work with. They tend to have similar needs. They need help in the bathroom, getting dressed in the morning, eating snacks, lunch, dinner, locations on the go at school, and in speech therapy as well. Also added some feelings on here. So these are just sort of samples that a speech therapist developed.
Based on your knowledge of working with families and what families need to get their kids functioning, higher functioning in ways, tools that can help them. Because I see bathroom, clothing, comment, family, favorites, feelings, food, home, let's go, park, school, speech. So these are all areas that the average child and family would need to have access to help their children see a schedule and communicate.
That's correct. And also as a speech therapist, I put my students on here, so they have their own categories. Which I took off, so we don't show those today. But I usually have them on here, so I'll have Jason or Emily or Jessica or whatever, and they'll be on here, and I can go into their page.
Okay, so the individual therapist and behavior therapist or speech therapist can work with creating a custom tablet for the child, a template.
And this goes with that child. This goes to school. This goes to behavioral therapists. This goes to speech therapy. This is home in your bathroom. This is in your kitchen. This is in your living room. And this is providing language for your child. And this data collection can go with you throughout the day so you could see your progress.
Okay, so what happens if we touch bathroom? What do we get to see?
So if we touch bathroom goes into the bathroom page. And these are just some sample photos that I took.
Okay.
And I like the fact that it says it as well. So they touch it, so they're seeing the text, touch it, and getting the spoken word as well.
Correct.
So we're building skills there. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I put the words on top of the photos for incidental learning. So we're always teaching reading.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And it's a multimodality. So we're teaching speech because you hear my voice, and you could record your voice, father's voice. If your child is verbal, can say 1 to 2 words, you can record their voice on here. So whoever's voice you want to record, it's in digitized speech, so it's that natural voice that you hear, and they are required to imitate it as well.
Okay.
So just going down here, you can, and I put some signs on here too. I've worked with deaf and hard of hearing over the years as well, and I know a lot of families and children with autism are familiar with some basic signs, you know, for want, and you know, let's see some more. And this is what I took these of my hands with a black felt background. It took months to take these pictures. You can imagine. I have a flip down screen, so if you go here and you want to add a color, you can tap on a color, purple, and it goes down to your screen. What I found in other apps I was using was the navigation problem. You know, our children they need quick access to communication. And we're having to go back to the home page, then to the colors, then pick a color, then go back to the home, then to the bathroom. By that point, they don't really want a color anymore. They just want to get their needs met. So the flip down, they don't leave the screen.
It's amazing how fast technology can grow and help our kids, because even just a couple of years ago, kids were walking around with these huge PEC books.
Absolutely.
And they were having to flip through, and it was frustrating for them.
Right.
And then, you know, we started with apps, and everybody said, oh, this is amazing, but clearly you've streamlined it in a way that's made it even more user-friendly for our kids. That's
and based on your experience, which I think is great. And, you know, I can only say, when I look at someone like you, Kim, a young woman like you, it just really makes me feel good that there's such passionate, committed people getting into this field and helping our children. I just want to say I'm very impressed by you.
Thank you so
and
much.
The work you're doing. I mean, it took a lot of initiative to do this.
Yeah.
This was you know, I feel as a speech pathologist, and if I'm going to commit my life to working with children with autism, I felt this was my duty to make, because I knew what was needed, and I was going to call their app developers to make this. I have great ideas. You know, I didn't want to do this, but all of a sudden I just knew I had to do this, and I just want to give back as much as I can.
You're a really enterprising young woman, and how can they get it?
Yes,
I mean,
let's talk about the
reality. Let's talk about how
What's it called? How do we get it?
Yeah. So it's Panda Pal Autism Communication System.
Okay.
It's on iTunes now, and it's only $45.
Okay.
Good deal. Now, I can also say that ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, does have an assisted technology program. We have given many iPads out, and we are continuing to do that. So people can go to our website, act-today.org. They can look at the application. They can apply for an iPad, and we are giving out the Panda Pal app with that if you request it.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
Absolutely fabulous. But if somebody is not doing the grant and they want to buy it today, where do they go to buy it?
Just go to iTunes and put Panda Pal, and it'll pop up. And I do have a free version coming out for families, because I know there's so many apps out there, and I've bought so many because I wanted to try it. I thought they were going to work, and they didn't.
Right.
So I want to give families an opportunity to try it out for free.
Okay.
And it's a small version. It just comes with 4 categories. You can add on 1 picture, and you could test it and see if it works for your child. If it's something that they like, that will work for them.
Great. I have one final question from you, because we often ask this, Shannon and I. If you had one piece of advice to give parents out there listening, based on your work with our kids with autism, what would you say to them?
Make sure they have access to their communication. Wherever they're at, make sure that they have access to that. Whether if they're verbal, then improving their language, providing models for them. If they're not, sometimes our speech, it's under construction for some of our kids. And instead of forcing them down that road, we want to access cognition, language development, expressive language, receptive vocabulary. How do we get there quickest? So visually, most of our kids with autism, at least our younger kids, rely on that path. And so stepping back and saying, it's okay if they're not talking right now, but I want to help them access their language. How can I get into their world? And how can I do that? And so if you find that you're prompting your child to speak. If they're going by the door and they want to go out but they're not saying it, and if you're saying outside, I want to go outside, and they're repeating you, then they're relying on you as their means to communication. So they need to be independent. They need to come to you. And that's why I designed this system for parents to be empowered to do that. And there's teaching opportunities throughout the day, all the time. So take advantage of those opportunities, whether it's in the car, it's at home, wherever you are. There's so many opportunities, and it's not just when they're in the speech therapy room with that therapist for 30 minutes 3 times a week where you paid so much money and advocates to get there. You know, there's so many hours of the day with parents.
So take that and put it into the home and into daily living. That's great advice.
And I have to say, I love to hear you saying what you just said, because a lot of times parents speaking and vocalization is so important to so many of us. It's an emotional issue. And I know a lot of parents, excuse me, feel like if they're going to go to this kind of assisted technology that it means we're giving up.
Yes.
When in fact it's completely the opposite.
Yes.
Studies have shown that if you give your child this kind of ability to communicate, you will get to the speech faster and happier because they're less frustrated, correct?
Exactly.
That's good to know.
That is,
yes.
is a message I always try to get across. And I'm a speech pathologist. I want them to talk.
Absolutely.
Because I want to do a good job, and
Right.
I want that more than anything.
Right.
But I realize over the years I've seen the kids that have had technology or have had access to pictures to communicate, we could tap into their language. So if I go to evaluate a child and verbally they're relying on therapist, teacher, or parent to verbally prompt them, they're going to bomb the assessment.
Right.
And if they have a system to communicate, to access language development, then that's how they're going to grow. And speech will come in over time, and there's only so much we could do.
Yeah.
But this does prompt them. So I require them to read the word, see the picture, and they say it. And I've had students where they've done this and they've heard my voice on here actually speak clearer than they do when they hear me for some reason.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Technology is fascinating.
Yeah.
But for parents to know it's not an either or, that if you are going to work on something like this, it doesn't mean that speech isn't coming at all.
That's right.
And in a lot of cases, it can precipitate it that much faster.
Good to know.
But Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and coming in and showing to us Panda Pal.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
You're delightful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back, right?
We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Yep.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've been talking about things going on this weekend, and there's a big event that we're going to be going to together on Saturday morning.
Yes.
You and I out in the world.
Out in the world. I mean, I'm gonna get to that Hacienda Oaks event in the afternoon, and then I'm gonna be just exhausted on Saturday.
I don't know how you're going to do that.
I know. Well, we'll see how I feel after the walk.
Yes,
we are going to be at the Autism Speaks Autism Walk, which is what were you saying? How many is it?
It's the 10th annual Walk Now for Autism.
That's amazing.
Los Angeles.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, and I love this event, and I talk frequently about this event. If you're anywhere within driving distance of Los Angeles and have the opportunity to go to this is the one that you should go to. I really believe it is life-changing.
Okay.
It's huge. They're expecting more than 25,000 people. And even if you just come for the resource fair, if you're brand new to autism and you don't have it together to walk, that's okay. There's nobody standing there saying you must walk. But come at least to the resource fair. Even if you stand at one moment and just look at the crowd and see all those people and know that everyone there cares so deeply about somebody with autism that they got up and put on shoes on a Saturday morning and went through all kinds of
You're starting to tear
craziness.
up.
Yes, to park to be able to be there. And you know, if you've had even one day on this journey where you felt like you were alone, come to this event and stand there and realize you are not alone.
You're definitely not alone. I mean, we're the autism nation, as our friend Dana Thiero says.
Yes.
With this being an epidemic and 1 in 54 boys and probably much more, and 1 in 88 children, we are the autism generation, and we are being heard. Everybody's taking notice. There are studies being done. There is answers are on the way. We have answers. We have a lot of things available to us now to help our children, like skills.
Yes.
And I also want to say, we're going to be giving away some random little giveaways. Like, look how cool. Autism affects all schools. Get skills. You can put that on your card.
Or autism, you can't ignore it.
How about some Act Today, I'm an Activist mugs? I'll throw some of those in. How about
that? And we have some card water bottles to give out too. So,
all right. Well, we got lots of stuff.
So we're going to be there in the middle of the resource fair. You'll have to find us. We're not at a specific booth. We're going to be coming around and interviewing you guys to put on the show next week. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get to meet with your community, and Nancy and I are part of your community. So we
want you to stop by, say hello to us, and we really always want your suggestions for topics, your feedback, what you like to hear from us, what you like to see. I think that's really important that we're in touch with the public, so I'm really excited about being there.
I am too, and whenever we have an opportunity to be with that many people and say that we're all working towards the greater good for our kids, something wonderful happens.
That's right.
Amazing.
Yeah, power in numbers.
It is. And there's the resource fair, so while you're there, you're going to get to meet us, and you're going to get all this information, anything that has anything to do with autism. They're giving away free stuff. You'll come home with so many sensory toys.
Yeah, you said, now, sometimes I get a little overwhelmed at these things. So you had some good advice on what to do, that you go.
They will give you a bag when you go in. You'll register. If you're bringing your child, and I encourage you to bring your child, you'll fill out a lost child ticket so that if you happen to get separated, they have a multi-step system so that all the kids will be safe.
Okay.
But you go, you register, and then they'll give you a bag, and a lot of booths hand out bags too. And I would just go, this is what I've always done, and my husband will do it for me on Saturday, just go from booth to booth and take whatever flyer, whatever free giveaway, and then you can go home later on and sort through it all.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you stop and talk to every individual person, you're only going to get down 10 booths, and you're going to miss out. And I would go through at the end of the day, we go home, I separate, okay, here are the sensory toys, here are the flyers that are for right now that I really need to deal with, here are the flyers for down the road, for when he's a teenager, and I put them in my resource file. So I've got it down the road.
You know what? I am in awe of you.
No, don't be.
I am in awe of you.
Don't be. I'll show you my old resource files.
You are so organized.
No. If you saw my house, you would see that is such a lie. That I'm not organized. But information is a premium, right?
Information is a premium. And Kim Scott, who we had on today's program, I met her at the All Ages and Abilities Asperger's and Autism Conference down in Anaheim. And a lot of the guests on our show I meet at conferences and things like this. And I imagine you and I are going to have people to talk to for the next year minimum.
You get connected. And Kim said she's going to be there at the walk.
She's going to be there. So you can talk to her about Panda Pals. There's going to be so much there.
There'll be lawyers and advocates and nutritionists and ABA providers and people who with the therapy dogs, everything possible.
Everything that you might need or even think you need for your child, and things you can investigate and look at for the future.
And there's some superstars there as well.
Yeah.
Joe Montagna is going to be there. Ed Asner is going to be. We do love Joe. Ed Asner is going to be there.
Ed Asner, Matt's dad.
Right. Matt is running the whole show. We're going to get a chance to see him again on Saturday.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get to sit down with him briefly.
Yes, he promised he would.
You think Ed Asner will say to me, "You got spunk"? I hate spunk.
We're going to get him to say that. We'll get him to say that because you do have spunk. So we'll definitely work on that. We'll make sure that we can get that. And some other incredible stars that are going to be there as well. It's a huge event.
You told me that the girl from the Bee in Apartment
23, the star of that show.
Not like a cute show.
It does look like a cute show.
Not for our kids, I hear, but a cute show.
So we'll hopefully have an opportunity to speak to her. And, but you guys can be there and hobnob and rub elbows with everyone and get that important information. And I think the best thing, though, is to feel the community. You can't buy that.
No, you can't.
It recharges my battery for the whole year. I really get excited about it. So come and let me be part of your community. Let Nancy be part of your community.
I think we all need a little recharging every now and then.
Yes,
I know I do.
Yes, we do. And also it's a place where everybody gets it. So if you bring your child, it's a wonderful thing.
Okay, so bottom line is, we hope to see you there.
Absolutely.
And next week we're going to be reviewing some of the great people we talked to, right?
So this show ends, but the conversation continues.
And we
be in touch with us.
See you next week, right?
So take care, you guys. See you next week.
Bye.